Morning, everyone. Okay, yesterday, we just got a chance to see what is Power BI and a little orientation about Power BI, right? Nothing more than that. So today, as discussed, as SQL is very important, we'll start off with the SQL fundamentals first, and then we'll move on to Power BI. Okay. So the ones who already completed SQL, you got some already idea already that why SQL is needed. And when it comes to reporting, we know this, right? The very first thing, what is that we need in order to create any kind of a report, or if you want to try any insights, we need data first. So that is the first point. And this data usually is available, in a bigger organization in the form of a database, right? Mid-scale, small-scale companies, they maintain their data in Excel sheets, CSV files, or any other, SharePoints or something. But most of the companies, they prefer to save their data in databases. There are multiple reasons why they prefer databases, because one thing is that it is scalable, expandable, very, very flexible, right? And huge data can be stored inside, and regular backups are easy if there is a database. And multiple reasons are there why companies go with the databases. And there are different databases available in the market. It could be SQL Server database, MySQL database, Oracle database, Teradata, DB2, Sybase, so many. Okay. So when it comes to the reporting layer, nothing but this is where we create all the reports. Okay. It could be any of these tools we can use. I think most of you already, completed Excel course, and you know how to create the reports using Excel. Something like a dashboard you can create. You can create pivot tables, charts, slicers, right? Or sometimes simple tables also we create using Excel. Other than that, Excel, we have other tools also. But when it comes to these tools like Power BI, ClickSense, Tableau, right? These are very, very, powerful visual analytics tools. So many features are there. And yesterday I was showing you custom visuals. You can quickly download a visual and you can start using it very easily. Right. As we are learning Power BI here, and for Power BI also, in order to create a report using Power BI, what is needed? We need the data. So where is the data? Data is there in the database. In order to get the data from the database, you should be able to interact with the database, right? So can I ask directly in English to a database, okay, get me the last 6 months sales data? No, it may not be possible, right? So what is it we need to do? We need to talk to the database in a language that is understood by the database. Okay. So here we go. We have SQL for that, structured query language. We pronounce this as SQL. And the SQL has different variants, right? A few people, they say that T-SQL, Transact SQL, MySQL, right? Different variants of SQLs available. And one of those SQLs most commonly used, of course, others are also used, but TSQL, which is from Microsoft, right? It is a Transact SQL, TSQL, and which is a language. We use that language to communicate it with the SQL server, SQL server. Okay, so that is Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, done. So here in this process, we will be understanding the T-SQL concepts only. But I'll tell you one more interesting thing here. Even if you just learn T-SQL, it's easy for you to learn MySQL, Oracle SQL, or any other thing. So the reason being, all these variants of SQL, they look very much same, very much same. Like almost 95% of the commands, they look very much same. And a few commands here and there, the names are different, but the functionality is same. So you absolutely no need to worry. So that's the reason I always tell my personal experience. When I learned Oracle 11G. Okay. So all the Oracle SQL commands there. So next one, when I've started working with my client was using MySQL. Now I'm dealing with TSQL. So it doesn't really make much difference, among these things. All of them, they look very much similar. Okay. So commands, a few functions are with different names, but the functionality is same. Okay. So you absolutely no need to worry. You can learn any variants of SQL because all of them, they look very much same. Fine then. So we understand that we want to create a report using Power BI. For that, we need the data, and the data can be there in any database. And in order to interact with the database and the database server, we need a language, right? And that is SQL language. And we pass a query and we can easily get whatever the data that we want, right? You get an idea like, why do I need to write these tricky queries and all? Can't I download all the database data into Power BI and start creating the reports? If all the data is there in Power BI report, you can create any kind of a report, right? That's not a great idea to, do. I'll tell you one thing. Let's say go back to our school days, okay? Let's say for that day, you got three subjects as per the timetable, three subjects. But overall, you have eight subjects, right? For that day, you just have only three. Let's say physics, maths, and chemistry. That's it, okay? And you carry the books, right, every day in a bag, right? And you are very much sure that for that particular day, you just need only three subject books. Why? Because as per the timetable, it requires only, I mean, it's showing three subjects only will be taught that day. So now you tell me, would it be a good idea to carry all eight subject books or three subject books? Only three subject books, right? Okay. Why do you do that? What's wrong in carrying all eight subject books? Hmm. Unnecessary load, right? Perfect. So same thing when it comes to the reports also. If you are creating a report to, or to solve something or to draw the insights about something, then there is no point dumping all the data into your report. Just load the data that is needed for that report, not load the entire database data into it. There is no point. It doesn't make any sense, right? It unnecessarily increases the load of the on the report, right? Load the things that are needed for that report. Okay, anything that is not needed, you can delete that table or column or row, whatever, right? We'll be dealing with all those things as part of the data transformation. But for now, understand that this is the basic rule of creating any report. A report should contain the data that is meant to be there. No other data, no other columns or rows. Simple, right? You may be thinking, this report is just only 10 MB, right? How does it really matter? Even if I load the full data, also it is consuming only 10 MB data. But understand that, once you create a report, it is just not only for one time purpose, right? It will be used regularly, if it is a daily report kind of a thing. And unnecessarily other set of data is also getting loaded. It's unnecessarily creating load on the report, right? Additional load on the report. So that is the reason what we usually do is that we can write a SQL query that helps us to get the data only that is needed for that report, no additional data. You can dump the entire table also, but with the help of SQL query, what is that we can do? We can write the clauses, we can aggregate the data, we can summarize the data, and only the required amount of data will be entered into your report so that the report size will be significantly reduced instead of dumping the entire table into the report, right? Now you need to see this has two things. One is your Power BI layer, which is your reporting layer. The other one is the database layer. So that's where all the data is there. Dumping all the data into a Power BI report is very easy because, get me all the data into the Power BI report so that whatever is there in the database will be entered into your Power BI. But it will make Power BI very, very heavy, right? And it needs to handle a lot of data, but that may not be, that much data may not be needed to report, right? So what is it we do? We simply write one SQL query and we say that, okay, get me the data from the transactions table where the transaction date falls in last 1 year. That means what it does, even though your business has last 10 years data, but your data will be restricted to only last 1 year so that your Power BI report runs very fast. Understood? Done. So this is why SQL is needed, right? We always prefer writing the SQL queries. Okay, done. But yeah, again, writing all those complex queries at this point, someone who is very, very beginner may not be that easy. But before starting Power BI, there are certain things that you need to understand about SQL, RDBMS, normalization, a database server, what is a client and all. So this terminology is very much important. So I'll just cover a few basics of SQL, and then we'll proceed to the Power BI concepts, right? Let's see how it goes today. And just in case if you are unable to follow that, and feel free to ask me the questions, okay? But make sure you learn these concepts before we actually get into Power BI. Okay, today I'll show you why these concepts are needed. I think by end of today, we should be able to create a simple model. Okay, we should be able to, right? So let's see this first. So you may be getting one more question here, like, it is Power BI session, right? Why do I really need to learn about SQL? Just now I showed you, if you want to get the data is there in database. You should learn this. And not only in order to get the database data, but also one more very important point is there, which is building data model. The data models are dependent on those primary keys and foreign keys and relationships only. Okay, so let me show you what are those things. So first of all, let me ask you this. How many of you know primary key, foreign key? I think someone who completed SQL, you already have some idea, but this is the question for the ones who are new to SQL or you don't know about, anything about SQL, right? Do you know that primary key, foreign key?
Sir, but I forgot.
You forgot. Okay, no problem. Online participants, by any chance, do you know what is a primary key, foreign key? The ones who did not or who haven't completed SQL, you got any idea? Okay, no problem. So let me tell you.
Primary key.
Yes,
Oh,
please. Yes, please. Please go ahead.
you want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So the primary key, if we have two tables, the first based table is known to be as a primary key, and the other table where the data is there known to be as a foreign key. So yeah, if we have the both like order ID, then the first one will be the primary and the second one will be the foreign.
Okay. Any other explanation? Others? Okay, no problem. Here we go. Let me give you an example of a primary key first. So what is a primary key? Simply a key that is unique and can't have any nulls. Okay? A key that is unique and cannot have any nulls is a primary key. Simply, if you are taking a look at a table and any column values that are unique, nothing but each and everything is a different one, cannot be duplicated, which means, okay, plus, and there are no nulls in that column, then you can call it a primary key. Example is an employee ID. If you take a look at an employee ID in the employee table, then each and every employee gets one unique identification number. So you can consider employee ID as a primary key there in the table, right? Most of the people have this confusion, like, can I call everything that is sounding unique? Can I call it as a primary key, right? So that's the reason we have this example. I want you to just take a look at this, and someone who completed SQL, don't answer this because this is for someone who should understand. Just a second. Right. Take a look at this table. As per the definition just now I told, which column is a primary key in this table? Employee ID. Okay, online participants, would you agree with this? Employee ID is the primary key. Is it correct? Is my understanding correct?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes, Kishan. Yeah.
Because in this table, there is one ID column, and that ID for each and every employee is different, and there is no null. So I can consider this as a primary key. Just in case, using any Excel features, if you want to check it, you can just go there, select it, and highlight duplicates. And just in case, if any duplicate is there, nothing is there, no duplicate is there. Perfect. That means it's a primary key. Nothing is null there and no duplication, right? So perfect. So we usually say this way, like, the moment you see something that is unique and not null, then what is it we think it is? A primary key. Right, let's say that. Okay. Now take a look at this table, right? Again, this is for someone who is new to SQL. Take a look at this table and tell me which one is the primary key here. See, usually a table contains one primary key. Okay, so now you tell me which column is qualified as a primary key in this case.
Employee ID Kishore, because every number is having a unique number, so we can call as a primary key.
Right, employee ID is a primary key. Okay, let me just mark this as primary key here. Okay, done. Okay, so are we okay with? Okay, you get a question here. Even the pay ID is looking to be the unique one here. So can't I call pay ID as a primary key here? Okay, I get your point. We'll come to that point, okay, shortly. See, most of us, before building any kind of a data model, this is where most of us have the confusion, like, which one is a primary key, foreign key, and data models, they run with those relationships only. And very, very important to understand, the primary key, foreign key. The moment you see, probably, even if I'm sitting in your position, I may be thinking like employee ID is sounding unique there and no nulls are there. So I can consider this as a primary key, but hold on. This is where most of the beginners, they do the mistake. Just because something is sounding unique, you cannot always say it is a primary key. I'll tell you why. You always need to look at the table. Which table? Nothing but which sheet are we looking at here? Employee payroll table. Payroll table or payroll sheet. Okay. So here we go. If you want to say employee ID as a primary key, what is the behavior of a primary key? A primary key cannot be duplicated and cannot be null, right? But which table are we looking at? Payroll table. Perfect. If you are looking at payroll table, you tell me this employee ID 1234 is paid in the month of May 2023 and the same employee to be paid in the next month also, right? Yes or no? Let's say if I just zoom it out, this 1234 ID is paid in this month. Okay, just use any other color. And that 1234 ID will be paid in the next month also, right? Same employee ID. Okay, tell me something. I think most of you are working already. So do you get every month a new employee ID to get paid or the same employee ID? Same employee ID. So that means in the payroll table, the same employee ID will be repeated. Yes or no? Right? For every month. Not only for every month, just in case if any bonus is rolled out during the month, right? The same 1234 is once again there. But the type of the payment is bonus. Now you get the point. So now you tell me, can I call this column as a primary key? Definitely I can't call it. Why? Because if it is a primary key, you cannot repeat the same number, right? So 1235 is also repeated here once again. All those employee IDs for the month of June also been repeated there. Now you get the point. So is it a primary key in this table? No. So just because something is sounding unique, do not consider that as a primary key. So what is that you need to look at then? You always need to look at the table name first. Table name. If the table name is payroll table, employee ID cannot be a primary key. No way. Why? Because a simple thing, the same employee to be paid every month. But what is the primary key here? Yes, pay ID. Pay ID is a primary key. Why? Because each and every pay we make, we get one unique number there and it cannot be null. So that means in the employee payroll table, pay ID is a primary key, not the employee ID. No way. Just in case if the developer marks employee ID as a primary key, you know what will happen? Okay, the ones who are like seeing these SQL concepts for the very first time, answer this. If the employee ID in the payroll table marked as primary key, then what will happen? Okay, if you mark something as a primary key, can we duplicate it? Can we repeat the same ID one more time? No, right? Now you tell me, if I mark this as a primary key, what will happen to that employee? If I already marked it as, primary key, what will happen? Come on, think. Let's say you joined a company and they marked your employee ID as a primary key in the payroll table, what will happen?
Only get paid for one time.
For the entire for the entire career, you work in that company, right? That employee gets paid only once. Why? Because it's a primary key. You cannot repeat it. You cannot process a salary every month. You understand the point? So just be aware of this. Like, of course, you don't need to worry about this point because the database developers, they take care of all this process. Okay. Understand? You cannot mark employee ID as a primary key in the payroll table. That's clear, right? So which one is a primary key here? The ID. Okay, I want you to take a look at this now. You tell me, in this table, what is your primary key? Employee ID? Right. How do you know that employee ID is a primary key here? Right? Yeah. Even before checking that, the properties of this column, I want you to take a look at the table first. Nothing but here, a sheet first, okay? So which table are we looking at? Employee table. Okay, if it is employee table, employee ID is definitely a primary key. Employee table, employee ID is a primary key. Yes, it is a primary key. Why? Because if a new employee joins, that person gets a new ID, right? All other details will be filled. But none of these employee IDs will be duplicated because we are looking at employee table. I get another idea that if it is like an employee ID and can I reassign that employee ID to a new employee? Let's assume that Ravindra leaves the company. This 1235 ID, can I assign it to any other person? Anyways, Ravindra is no more with us, right? Why can't we do that?
What is number of data?
So I'm saying Ravindra leaves the company and I want to, give it to Suresh. Is it okay? Anyways, the
It
number is
cannot it
Hmm.
cannot possible, Kishore, because that employee ID is belongs to earlier person because it will related to all the PF and is designation name, everything related to that number, employee ID.
Hmm. Yeah, that's one thing. But again, I can still modify that information. But again, that's not recommended. The reason being, if you are assigning the same employee ID to someone else, let's say after 2 years, this Ravindra joins some other company. Let's assume, okay. And by the time these people have assigned this ID to someone else, and the new company will come for the background verification check, right? Yes. And when they reach out to this company, okay, these are the details provided by Ravindra, and Ravindra employee ID is 1235 with your company. Please, can you check and validate this information? And when they search in their database with 1235, what is the name? It shows there Suresh Excels. And they simply come, go back and say that, okay, there is no Ravindra in our database. You understand? So don't, think if someone leaves the company, it can be modified. No way. It needs to stay with the company only because a number of other things are also dependent on that ID. So that is the reason if something goes wrong with the primary keys, usually instead of correcting that information, what they do, they simply leave that record and keep a remark as, something like incorrectly done or something, and they leave that record, right? For the tracking purpose, because it is not that easy also to delete that record. Okay. A number of approvals are needed. Right. So you understood the concept of what is a primary key, right? So what is the first thing that you need to look at? You need to look at the table name first. Table name. Okay. This is bank accounts table. Tell me which one is the primary key here? Customer ID?
Customer Aadhaar, sir.
Customer Aadhaar. Okay. So all three of them are primary keys. Right. Only one is a primary key there. Which one? Customer Aadhaar should we go with? Yes. Customer ID is a primary key. Account number is a primary key. Online participants, what?
I will go with account number because the table says that bank account. So Every
Hmm.
bank account will maintain a unique number with account. Maybe customer ID, Aadhaar is there, but I will go with account.
Okay, so to go with customer ID and customer Aadhaar, what is the primary key? The two rules that we discussed. The two rules to say some unique and correct, not null, right? When you want to say something is unique, you tell me this. Are they unique or repeated? So the moment you see the repeated numbers, how can we say it is a primary key? Even the customer Aadhaar also, the same Aadhaar ID is repeated. Then how can you say that it is? So look at the data also. Just because some header is sounding really Aadhaar means the moment we hear this, we think it could be unique one. No, I'll tell you why the data looks like this. A simple example. You may have a savings bank account with a bank, correct? That is the first type of account. From the same bank, you may have a credit card also. That's another account. Home loan also. That's another account. Car loan also. That's another account. And FD also. That's another account. You see that? Customer ID remains same. But because when you log in, you will be able to see all those associated accounts that are under the customer ID. You can see that. And the Aadhaar number also that we submit the same number for all those accounts. But what is different there? The account number. Understood? Got some idea now, right? Just because something is sounding unique, you cannot call it's a primary key unless you check the data and check the table name. The very first thing that you need to verify is the table name. Online participants, understood? Getting some idea now? What is a primary key? Just because something sounding unique, you cannot call it a primary key. What is the first thing that you need to look at? Table name. If the table name, yes, it makes sense, then only consider that as primary key. Okay, so here we go. Customer ID, is it a primary key? Right. You cannot answer this question unless you know the table name, right? Most of the people, what they usually say is that customer ID, oh, okay, something is like an ID, right? IDs are always unique. And can I consider this as a primary key? No, you cannot say that, right? Unless you know the table name, you cannot say it is a primary key or not, okay? So here we go. Customers table, customer ID. Correct. Customers table, customer ID is a primary key because in the customers table, each and every customer gets one unique identification number. Customers table, customer ID is a primary key. Okay. Done. Product ID, is it a primary key? Again, which table? Without knowing the table name, you cannot answer this. Products table, product ID, primary key. Excellent. Products table, product ID is a primary key. Here's the catch. One very, very important thing. Customer ID in the transactions table. Yes, here we go. In this place, we call it a foreign key. Okay. You're seeing the customer ID in the transactions table. Here also in the payroll table, if you see the employee ID, payroll table, employee ID, I call it a foreign key. Why I call this as a foreign key? Because remember, a foreign key is a primary key. It's a primary key of some other table. Okay. So why do I call this as a foreign key here? Because employee ID is coming from some other table as a primary key. So this 1, 2, 3, 4 ID is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll be using the same 1, 2, 3, 4. That's coming from this table only. Okay, why do we prefer the foreign keys? This is to maintain the data integrity. Why? Because let's say if the 1, 2, 3, 4 ID itself is not there in the employee table, can you make the salary payment to that 1, 2, 3, 4 ID? No way. A primary key, if it is not present, then it cannot be used as a foreign key in some other table. This helps us in maintaining the data integrity. An employee who is not present in the employee table cannot be paid in the payroll table, right? See, if these kind of things are not, controlled in the databases, businesses who are operating with what? Lakhs of employees with billions of worth of transactions, they cannot go into each and every transaction and validate, right? Whether is it being processed correctly or not. You understand? So the databases are the ones, they help us to maintain this integrity and no inconsistency issues and all, right? But I hope you understood what is a primary key and a foreign key here. What is a primary key in a table? If a key is there, one of those columns is there, and that is, yeah, always unique and not null, you can consider that as primary key. Okay, but the same primary key can work like a foreign key in some other table. So what is a foreign key? A foreign key is a primary key of some other table. So what are the two rules for a primary key? It must be unique and not null. So these two rules should be satisfied by the primary key. And what is a foreign key? A foreign key is actually a primary key of some other table, right? So just by listening to the column header, can we say something is a primary key? No. Aadhaar number, is it a primary key? No, without knowing the table name, you can't say that. So similarly, PAN or vehicle registration number or, whatnot. You take any kind of an ID, that sounds unique, no doubt, but it depends on the table. Okay. Online participants, you got some idea now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The ones who completed SQL, don't answer this, okay? Answer this, please, the ones who are new to SQL and new to these keys, okay? Student roll number. Is it a primary key? Okay, you want to know the table? Perfect. Right. Whenever a question comes like this, something is a primary key, you should ask a question, which table, right? Perfect. It is student admissions table. Student roll number in the student admissions table. Each and every student gets one unique identification number at the time of taking the admissions. So in the admissions table, it's a primary key. In the admissions table, it's a primary key, but the same admission number or the roll number in the examinations table, it is a foreign key. Why? Because using the same roll number, the same student takes multiple exams. You got the point? Perfect. And the same student roll number is used for multiple times attendance. In the attendance table, student ID or the student roll number is a foreign key because same roll number only used every day, right? Right? So you are getting the point now. What is the primary key, foreign key? Okay, let me tell you one more example. Let's say laptop serial number, right? Which kind of a key is it? Perfect. Which table? It's in the laptop manufacturing table. Primary key, because when the machines are manufactured, each and everything, yeah, that comes with one unique identification number. But the same laptop serial number in the service center tables, it's a foreign key. Perfect. Why? Because each and every laptop, if that goes to the service for multiple number of times, using the same serial number, it can be serviced for multiple times. So in the service center table, it is a foreign key, right? In the manufacturing table, the laptop ID or the laptop serial number is a primary key, right? I hope you are getting the point here, right? Employee ID in the employee table is a primary key. Perfect. Employee ID in the PF payment table? Foreign key. Why? Because the same employee ID will be used for multiple number of times every month, right? To process the payment, the PF payment. You're getting the point now? Right. Perfect. So that means you understood what is it? What is a primary key, foreign key? Okay. Customer ID. Which table? Customers table. Primary key. Perfect. Customer ID in the customers table is a primary key, no doubt. Okay. Customer ID in the transactions table. Foreign key. Perfect. Customer ID in the transactions table is a foreign key. But I have a question here. Customer ID in the transactions table, if I mark it like primary key, customer ID if I mark it as a primary key in transactions table, what will happen? Correct. The person can do only one transaction with us. That person cannot buy the second item from us. Why? Because the ID is already there, right? And it cannot be duplicated. You're getting the point? Right? Okay, mobile number, is it a primary key?
Yes.
Right, mobile number provided table, primary key. But the same mobile number in the recharge table, right? Whenever you do the recharge and it uses the same mobile number and these many times it's been recharged, it can show that transactional information. You're getting the point? So something is sounding unique, do not call it a primary key. First, take a look at the table. Which table are we looking at, right? And then you can decide whether it is a primary key or not. Got some idea? No? Right, perfect. So using these primary key foreign keys only, we can come up with the data models. Okay, before that, I need to talk about one more thing before I get into the data model and the schema designs, okay? You take a look at this table, okay? Can you answer this question like what is the total salary paid to each and every department? Can you answer this question? What is the total salary paid to every department?
With the help of submit, we can do.
Right? We can do that. Right? Any other sum if is a good option using the functions, but any other option?
We can use pivot table as well.
Pivot table. Yeah, using the pivot table, you can easily summarize this data, right? So you have the department name and you just need to show the total salary. So salary goes into the values and the department name goes into the rows. That's it in the pivot table. If you remember the pivot table layout, how to design it, right? Okay, done. You get that output. Okay, tell me what is the maximum salary paid by the paid by the job? Can we do that? Can we answer this question? Maximum salary paid by the job. Can we do that? Same like pivot table only. Once again, keep the job in the rows and the salary, max of salary in the value section. That's it. It will show like each and every job wise and what is the max. Okay. Can you answer this question? What is the maximum salary? Can you answer using this data? What is the maximum salary? Right. Who is getting it?
Jones.
Jones. Jones works in which department as per this table? Accounts. Perfect. So all those questions you are able to easily answer, right? Okay. Why? Because all the required data is present in one table itself. But in the real-time databases, you cannot find all the data in one place like that. The data is located in multiple tables like this. Okay. So if you want to find out what is the total salary paid to managers, can you answer that question looking at only this table? Looking at only this table, can you answer this question? What is the total salaries paid to managers? Can you answer? Right? Okay, even if I want to create a pivot table, can you answer this question? Like, what is the total salaries paid to managers? Hmm. Why no? There is no manager word, right? You don't.
I think,
Hmm.
Kishore, we can go with the column G boss. Boss ID is there. I think we can
Hmm.
go with that.
Okay.
Not
So managers means only boss. You actually
Job
need to go
ID.
with God
Job ID.
job.
job ID. Yeah. But there is no word manager here. It shows one,
Maybe
two.
it is replicating some other thing, like every job ID has some designation.
Hmm. So if I show these columns now, I mean these columns now, what is job ID 1? right? So wherever one is there, that is manager. Correct? Perfect. So that means you should be able to fetch that manager value here wherever one is there and then take their total salary. That's how you can do it, right? And similarly, if I ask what is the total salary paid to the sales department, then what is it you need to do? Exactly. So here we did job ID to job ID. Here you need to do department ID to department ID. You're getting the point? There you definitely get a question. Why do I need to split the data into like this, into multiple tables? If the data itself is there in a single table, it's very easy for us to create any kind of a pivot table to show the department-wise salaries or job-wise salaries. It's easy, right? If the data is there in single table. But why we need to split the data into multiple tables like this? Okay. So here's the point. In the database side, we call something. What is it? Any idea? You remember? Splitting the data into multiple tables. Normalization. Data normalization. So what is this data normalization? Data normalization, in simple forms, you can say this way. From a big table that consists of all the data, what you can do is that you can split that into multiple small tables like this. A table that consists of all the data, what we did, actually, we split that into multiple tables like this. You get a question here, like, if I'm splitting the data like this, multiple tables, actually it is looking little complex to understand this, right? But you need to get a point here. If the data is normalized, there are multiple advantages. If the data is normalized like this is a normalized data and this is denormalized data. Denormalized data means everything is there in one table. Normalized data means the data is located in multiple tables, right? What are the advantages of this normalized data? The normalized data advantages two very important things, that it can reduce the data redundancy and inconsistency. Data redundancy and inconsistency. What is data redundancy? Redundancy means the same values being repeated for multiple number of times, right? Same thing. Here we go. If you see one here, what's supposed to be there? Actually, manager is supposed to be there. Wherever one is there, manager should be there, right? Manager. You get an idea that, why can't we directly type manager there? Why do we need to write one there? Understand? The data redundancy. If you see the word manager for multiple number of times, you can say that the data is redundant. Instead of repeating that manager, what did we keep there? We kept one there. But when we kept one there, and in order to fetch the value that corresponds to that one, where is it available? It's there in the designations table, right? So if you are picking up manager from here and doing the reports, and it may be looking little complex. Why do I need to depend on other table? Happily I can type in everything in one table itself. Wherever one is there, manager is there, then I can happily create a pivot table using this itself. I don't need to depend on this table. You may be getting this idea, but understand, when it comes to a bigger data set and the same values are repeated for multiple number of times, it occupies significant amount of space. I'll give you a simple example. If I give you a pen and paper, I ask you to write one and I ask you to write manager. Which one takes more ink? Manager. Which one takes more time to write? Manager. But one takes very less ink and less time, right? Understand, in the database side also same thing happens. And what is that you do? You simply assign a key, and the key will be used for storing purpose. But for reporting purpose, you cannot use a key. Why? Because if you prepare a report by job ID 1, this is the total salary we are paying, and you give the report to the HR head. And that person is not aware what is job ID 1 unless you convert that job ID 1 as manager. Now you are getting it. Let me go back to Excel also once. Whenever you have a situation like this, if the data is located in multiple tables and there is a common key, what is the function that you use to get the job there, the designation there? Right, VLOOKUP equal to VLOOKUP. Lookup value is this. I hope all of you are comfortable writing the VLOOKUP. So that's the reason I'm directly doing it. Table array is this, right? Second column and 0. That's it. And drag it down and I get all the different designations there, right? In Excel, what is that we do? We use the lookup functions to fetch the data into a same table. But again, you're still thinking, you may be still thinking like this, if all the data is located in one place, it is easy for us to prepare the reports, right? Yes, definitely. If all the data is there in one place, you can happily create a report, no doubt. But when it comes to a real-time database, our database is always normalized into multiple tables. The reason being, at the time of storing the data, the database developer always focus on reducing the size of the data and to quickly access the data from different tables. If they start loading each and everything into a single table, it makes the database really, really heavy. You understood the point? So that's the reason they perform the data normalization, right? But good thing is that in Excel, we know the functions that can bring the data into a single table. How? Same lookup functions, VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, index and match, HLOOKUP, right? Why VLOOKUP only mostly used in Excel? I think by now you would have figured this out, right? Why VLOOKUP is only mostly used? Simple. In the databases, they maintain the data in the vertical tables and keeping the first column. Usually you take any database table, usually the first column is your primary key column there, right? As a result, we use VLOOKUP only, right? Because here the first column is a primary key column. But I have a question here. Just in case, if the databases, they contain the primary key always in the last column. Let's assume all the database developers, they decided to go with the primary key in the last column. Last column of the table is the primary key. You know what is it we are forced to learn in Excel then? Index and match. Why VLOOKUP is mostly used? Because in all the database tables, the first columns, they keep, the database developers, they keep the primary key column. That's the reason we always go with VLOOKUP. Right? So VLOOKUP, that's how it is, it turned out to be very famous formula, right, in Excel. But just in case, if all the developers, they keep the primary key in the last column, then and every Excel user is forced to use index and match or XLOOKUP only, right? XLOOKUP is available in the recent versions of Excel. But prior to that, it was index and match only. Now you are getting the point why VLOOKUP only every time? Simple, because the data itself is stored like that. So XLOOKUP is the one, the recent one, and it can fetch the data from left and right, both sides also. But when it comes to the VLOOKUP needs to have that lookup value in the very first column. Then only it works. Okay. Got some idea now? Perfect. Right. Why VLOOKUP only in Excel? Because VLOOKUP requires the first column to be the primary key. Right. Yeah. All right then. When it comes to the department ID, I need to do the same thing, right? Use the department ID to departments table. Okay. And by the way, why do we get these many tables and all? What is the process? Normalization. Perfect. When you perform the data normalization, you get two types of tables. Fact tables and dimension tables. Okay, remember this. This is also very much important to build the data model in Power BI. Fact table and a dimension table. What is a fact table? Fact table that holds numerical data. Okay. Fact table holds numerical data. Dimension table holds categorical data. Okay, qualitative data, I can say. Okay, fact table, numerical data, nothing but quantitative data. Dimension table, categorical data, qualitative data, right? So if you look at these tables, we see two types of tables in this example also. A few dimension tables are there and one fact table is there. So when it comes to this employee table, I consider this as a fact table. So what is the definition I told you about a fact table? It should contain the numerical data. So if you see these numbers, numbers. So that's the reason we call it numerical data. No, hold on. The reason, I'll tell you one more thing. If you want to consider something as a numerical data, even this department ID has numbers only. So can we consider this as numerical data? No. These are IDs. Okay. I'll keep it very simple for you to understand what is a fact table. Any of the columns in the given table, if you can do the sum of that column, then only you can consider it's a fact table. Right? If I look at the employee table and if I take the salary column, can I do the sum of it? Yes, I can do the sum of it. Perfect. So if I can do the sum of it, yes, I can consider this as a fact table. Perfect. And not only that, I see the commission column also. Even this commission amount can be summed up. So yes, it is a fact table. But when it comes to the department table, I cannot consider this as a fact table because these IDs are in number forms. Okay. No, because IDs cannot be summed up. Can you do the sum of these numbers and does it make any sense? 150? No. Right. So not every numerical column is qualified. Okay. For the fact table purpose. What is it you need to check? Can we do the sum of that column or not? If you can do the sum of it, yes, then only you can consider fact. Otherwise, it is a dimension table. Okay, what are the two types of tables we get out of normalization? Dimension tables and fact tables. Perfect. So we have all these dimension tables. Okay, 3 dimension tables are there. Right? 1 fact table and 3 dimension tables. Right. I hope you understood how the tables are split into multiple tables. And what is this process called? Data normalization, right? But what is that we need to use for the reporting? Denormalized data actually, right? But directly we cannot do the denormalization. What is that we do? We use the functions to get those values. Something like VLOOKUP, I can fetch the job, and using VLOOKUP, I can fetch the departments and all. In SQL, what is it we use to fetch the data together into a single output? Right, multiple tables are there and we use the joins to bring the data into a single table. Right, in Excel we use the lookups. In SQL we use joins, perfect. In Power BI we use relationships to get the data from multiple tables into a single table. Excel, lookup functions. SQL, joins. Power BI, data modeling, relationships, right? That's what we are going to do, right? Using the same primary key and foreign key concepts. Got it? Right. I think after looking at this, you can easily figure out which one is a primary key, foreign key, right? Okay, departments table, department ID is primary key. Okay, the same department ID, if it participates in the employee table, then foreign key. Perfect. Job ID in the designation table is primary key. The same job ID in the employee table is, that's it. And gender ID in the gender table is primary key. And the same gender ID in the employee table is a. So that means you understood what is the primary key, foreign key, right? Excellent. So let me show you the schema design now once. At the time of building the data models, same thing. Of course, I'll talk about this data modeling concepts in Power BI, but just try to understand this. Is it normalized data or denormalized data? Normalized data. Why? Because data is located in multiple tables. How many tables are there?
5 tables.
How many tables are there? 5 tables are there. Perfect. 5 tables are there. Out of them, how many are fact and how many are dimension? Right, 4 are dimension tables, 1 is a fact table. One thing is that you can look at the header of the table and you can easily identify. But I have a question here. Why do you consider revenue table as fact table? What is the reason?
The revenue can be summed up.
Perfect. In the fact table, revenue table, there is a column revenue, there is a column unit sold. These are the numerical data and can be summed up. That's the reason we call it fact table. Okay, when it comes to the date dimension, product dimension, branch dimension, dealer dimension, none of them are the numerical data there. Of course, IDs are there, but you cannot sum them up. You understood? Right, got some idea now? Right, okay. So now you tell me, I have a revenue table, right? And I have a dealer table here. What is the common key? Can you identify? Dealer ID, excellent. So now you tell me, in the revenue table, dealer ID is what kind of a key? Foreign key. Dealer table, dealer ID is? Primary key. Dealer table, each and every dealer gets one unique identification number, right? Okay, so tell me, branch ID in the revenue table is? Foreign key. Branch ID in the branch table is? Primary key. So that means you understood, right? Okay, got it then. So I think there is one mistake actually. There's supposed to be a product ID, but that's okay. No problem. We can still figure this out. Products table and revenue table is there. Model ID and model ID is there. That is a common thing, right? Now you tell me revenue table model ID is foreign key. Product table model ID is primary key. Actually, product table, product ID is a primary key and the same product ID should be there, but that's okay. Depends on the business. They will use different kind of things. Okay, right. So if you observe something here, this particular model, a schema design, we say, okay, schema design. We call this as star schema. Okay, this kind of a design. Nothing but a fact table is surrounded by multiple dimension tables. Okay, we consider this as star schema, right? Star schema doesn't mean that only 5 what is that dimension table should be there surrounded. Okay, a fact table surrounded by those. No, just not 5. It can be any number, but we simply call it as a star schema. Okay, it looks like a star. That's it. Right? Don't think only 4 tables, 5 tables should be there. It can have a number of tables also, right? You got the point? What is a star schema? It looks like a star, and where a fact table is surrounded by multiple dimension tables. But when it comes to a snowflake schema, this is also very important for you to understand. I think you can easily figure this out. Up to this level, right? Up to this is a star, right? But when a dimension table has other subdimensional tables, okay, like this, and this table may have one more table, right? And that table may have one more table using all those primary keys, foreign keys. That table may have one more table. Then it is called snowflake schema design. We try to always build a model as a star schema because performance-wise, star schema runs faster. But when it comes to snowflake, it runs a little slower. I'll tell you a simple example here. Let's say the required column, one of those columns here, revenue. Okay, revenue. You want to find out by the fuel type. Fuel type is nothing but we have the petrol type, we have the diesel type, we have the electric type, we have CNG type. These are the vehicle, fuel types. Electric is there, CNG is there, right? And your business asks to find out what is the total revenue by the fuel type. Okay, so that means you need to use a column from the this variant table, a column from the revenue table, and both of them should come into your report. Fuel type, total revenue by fuel type. So understand this. If you want to access this information, then both of them cannot simply come like this, right? So this fuel type using what is a common thing? Variant ID to variant ID, and from here model ID to model ID. So that information needs to pass through all these tables, and revenue will come from this table and fuel type will come from this table, so that you can create a report by each and every fuel type. What is the total revenue we got? So let's assume that one of those fields, the required fields, is located in this table. And the revenue by this table, if you want to do, you know what, the way the information flows from this table to this table, using this table to this table, this table to this table, this table to this, and this table to this, right? So this will definitely hamper the performance of the report. So what we try to do is we try to limit the model as a star, but sometimes it is not possible also. But we try to bring the data as close as possible in the data model. But while bringing the data as close as possible, what are the things that again we depend on? Those keys only: date ID, dealer ID, right? Location ID, country ID, all these IDs only. You got the point? What are the two types of schema designs we see? Star schema and snowflake schema. Why do we get these schema designs? Because we do the data normalization. What is the process of normalization? Yeah, instead of keeping the data, everything in one place, we split the data into multiple tables. What is the purpose? Why do we need to do that? Because we want to reduce the data redundancy and inconsistency issues, right? Okay, you tell me, after looking at all these things, as a reporting analyst or a data analyst, which data would you prefer? Denormalized data or normalized data? Denormalized or normalized? Which data you prefer as a reporting analyst?
Both the data.
Hmm. Hmm. Which data we prefer? I mean, which data you would like to work with? I would say denormalized data. As a reporting analyst, I'll tell you a simple thing. As a reporting analyst, if all the data is present in single table itself, then it's easy for you to create a report, right? Why do you want to write all those joins or lookups and get all the data into a single table and create a report? If the data itself is available in the denormalized form, then it's very easy for us to create a report. Yes or no? Right? But usually that is not the case. We don't get denormalized data. Completely denormalized data you cannot expect in the real time.
Like different tables.
Multiple tables, usually you see that. See, my question is about what is the data, what kind of data you like to work with. I mean, I personally prefer working with denormalized data because everything is there in one place and it's very easy to create a report. You don't need to look up those values in other tables or create relationships or the joins with other tables, right? So as a reporting analyst, I prefer denormalized, but in the real time, you can't get always a denormalized data. Okay, got some clarity now? Perfect then. Okay, so with that, you got some idea what is a primary key, foreign key, why the keys come into pictures, and why the data is split into multiple tables. What is a dimension table? What is a fact table? And coming to the schema designs, what is a star schema? What is a snowflake schema? And why do we prefer to bring the data into a star schema to improve the performance of the report, right? And a lot of relationships and a lot of joins to be created. Obviously, pulling that number will take more time, right? That's what I was just trying to show you here. If a one data point here and one data point here, and you want to show both of them in your report, it will take some time to get the data from one table to the other table, right? So many other concepts also there that we will see tomorrow in SQL. And tomorrow we are going to create our first Power BI report. Okay, this simple example I'll show you. You just create your first report so that it starts giving you that confidence that yes, you can build the reports using Power BI. Are we good so far? Yeah, perfect then. So just get this material, just take a look into that. Okay, of course, it's just like an orientation about SQL. Definitely we need to remember before getting into Power BI data model. Okay, cool then. So please download this, go through this. I'll show you where are these files. Yeah, in the data normalization and 03 folder, data normalization is there. Okay, so just go through that. Tomorrow I'll take you through. Yes, please.
Sorry to pause you. I mean, I have one question over here. When we are using the star schema and snowflake, how we need to know? Because, as you said, for the star schema, we can use the multiple tables. Then why are we using the snowflake schema?
Oh, sometimes, a dimension table will have a subdimensional table. I'll tell you one thing here. I'll show you this. A dimension table will have a subdimension. Okay. Let's say there is
Right.
a model. Okay. There is a model, and that model has a variant. And that variant and all other details of the variant, like variant name, fuel type, and other few things, right? They are available in some other table. So definitely you need to connect to that variant table also to get the other, access to the other columns from the variant table. So what we usually do in order to speed up the report, this variant table is there, right? We try to merge this table into the product table itself. There is a concept called merging in Power Query. We'll talk about that, okay? So yes, sometimes what happens is that a dimension table can have one more subdimension table. That subdimension table can have one more subdimension table. You're getting the point? So that's the reason we definitely need to build Snowflake, but we try to bring it as a star by merging those subdimensional tables into the main dimension table. Okay, but merging is a concept that we learn in Power Query. Is that okay?
Yeah. For
Yeah,
now, I think I'm okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Merge this table also into this table. We can merge that. Okay. When to merge, when not to merge also we need to discuss. Okay. Sometimes it is okay to merge, sometimes it is not okay to merge. So what are those points and all? In the Power Query, data transformation, combining the queries, one of those concepts is there. There I'll talk about that.
Can we get any interview question from this, Kishore? Like, can they ask what is the difference between star schema and Snowflake
Yes.
schema?
Yeah, definitely. Because when you build the models, this is one of those very important concept. And interview questions, anyways, I'll share towards the end. In our last session, I'll take you through.
Okay.
I'll share that material. Anyways, whatever the points that we discussed, it's there in the theoretical format.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, perfect then. So please go through this folder. Just take a look, okay, for today. And tomorrow, I'll give you a small exercise also to create your first Power BI report. Okay. Done then. Thanks, everyone. Let's catch up tomorrow. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.